The Comet Hunter. The Comet Hunter was out early that night. He sat on the rocks at the edge of the lake, binoculars around his neck, star charts on his lap, and a little red flashlight clenched between his teeth. He held a sharp pencil in his hand. It was a beautiful night. The sunset had faded and the stars had appeared. He was usually out later, but tonight he had to beat the moonrise. The people and the lights of the nearby cafe distracted him, but he had to get his work done for that night. He leaned back and put the binoculars to his eyes. With the added magnification and light gathering ability, 10 times as many stars appeared to him. Most city dwellers did not know the majority majesty of the sky above them. He felt he alone knew this beauty and that it was his alone. The moon rose over the lake, red and oval shaped. The moon always looked bigger than it actually was at the horizon. Far off clouds obscured it. He knew he had only about an hour to work. He discovered the coordinates he wanted rather quickly. It was like that on most nights. He looked at the stars through the binoculars. No changes tonight. It was like that on most nights. He had what psychologists called a visual memory. He could remember what the spot in the sky looked like last night and the night before. He was not 100% infallible. He still needed to check again. He would wait until the next night. When he thought he had a find, he would mark it on his charts and grow anxious. He knew when he knew he had a find, he would call one of his connections at an observatory and have them check their photographs to take fresh pictures. Usually it was a known asteroid or a known comet. Asteroids had solid edges, comets sometimes fuzzy. But looking at something through the city atmosphere, you couldn't always tell. He dreamed of being able to see the Hubble telescope use the Hubble telescope for just one night. What wonders could discover. He knew someday he would discover a comet. Far beyond the orbits of the farthest planets was a place where the comets lived. He prayed for the day that one would come rushing into the sun with his name on it. Literally, it would be his. His name would brand it for all eternity. He would be immortalized. Some men have children. Some men write books. Some men search for comets. He often found himself waiting impatiently for the night. He often thought he should move to Colorado or Arizona, somewhere where the night sky was always clear, somewhere far from the city. Someday, he said to himself. All these years of searching, he had never found a comet or even an asteroid. He never found anything that anyone would name after him. He knew his techniques were valid. Before the advent of modern astronomy, where someone observed every inch of the sky in some way almost every night, this was the way comets and planets were discovered. It was the way astronomy had moved forward. He was working in the tradition of Kepler and Copernicus and Herschel. He knew someday he would find something. Stars are fixed points of light. They do not seem to move from night to night. The Big Dipper would always look the same through each person's lifetime. Other points of light are not fixed in the sky. The planets move around the sky and are in a different position each night. Dimmer objects, comets, and asteroids appear in different places every night also. 45 degrees, 7 minutes, 6 seconds, and 35 degrees, 2 minutes, 0 seconds. He knew this may not be exactly correct, but he could be off by only a slight percentage. He waited and listened to the clicking of the computer keys. Each click seemed like a second or a day wasted from his life. Congratulations! You discovered the Herschel-Bowman comet first seen in 1895. Damn, I knew I had something. It was a small comet. I was surprised to be able to see it. I'll see if I could double check. Comets could come in pairs. I'll call you if I have anything. I'll call you back when I have something. Don't get discouraged. This is tough work. It's always one in a million shot. You'll get your shot next time. It's only a matter of time, right? Right. Listen, I have to get back to work here. Call me if I've discovered the twin comet. Will do. He was not all that disappointed this time. Each time was not all that disappointing. But at the end, the sum of all he had done for years was nothing. It was not this one result that was disappointing. It was his life. Yes, comets could come in pairs. If it was a comet that broke in half as it approached the sun. Comets were balls of ice and dirt, and occasionally, just passing by the sun was enough to rip them in half. Coming home late one night, driving down Lakeshore Drive, he saw a suspiciously familiar red light on the edge of the lake. It was then he realized he was not unique. He was not alone. Who was this person who followed the same path he did? Was it a simple stargazer? For a second, his heart went out to this kindred spirit, but it was instantly withdrawn. He suddenly felt cold and a little fearful. It bothered him. He felt like he possessed the sky each night. He knew it was silly, but he felt someone had invaded his space. He went to work. Mm. Okay, maybe this is the right way it's supposed to be or not the way it's supposed to be. Um, he went to work. He was lucky. He found a use for his visual memory. Other people may have skills like this, but they waste away because they cannot use them. He had advanced quickly at Gunderson and Company. He started as a press worker and now was a chief proofreader for the company. They primarily printed business forms and raffle tickets. He could instantly tell if something was amiss. He knew the job so well that he often corrected the copy from the customers. Today was a busy day. It did not matter, though. He could get it through any amount of work that they threw at him and still have time to proofread some internal reports and bookkeeping records. Old man Gunderson that said he had an eye for these kind of things. He had so much access to the company reports that he knew the business inside out. Susan walked up to his desk. She looked around. Here's more orders, she said. Sorry, but they were really swamped today. It's okay. Don't you get tired of sitting behind the desk all day long? Sometimes, he lied. He really didn't. Whenever he began to get tired, he would think of stars, sky charts, and history. Well, I think you should go out and about a little more, she said, skipping away. Susan worked at the order desk. She was plain looking and businesslike, but she had a wonderfully soft, whispery voice. She did occasionally flirt with the Comet Hunter. As far as he knew, the only one in the company she had ever flirted with was him. Okay. Blah, 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 blah. He could not leave it alone in his mind. It needled him. Who was this person who had invaded his turf? He had to find out. After about a half an hour, the kid opened up his backpack and removed the reflector telescope. It was small but heavy looking. He placed it on the ground next to him. He scanned the sky with his binoculars. He literally scanned. going from one end of the sky to the other. The comet hunter watched, and in one of these subtle things that he trained his eyes to see, he saw a slight movement in the telescope's orientation, and an almost unseen red light at his side go out, and a green light appear in its place. The telescope had leveled itself to the Earth's axis. He heard barely audible beep. He stood at the edge of the path and watched. The boy would lean back, look up to the sky through the binoculars, and take a light pen and mark his computer screen. The comet hunter felt sad. He walked over to the bench and sat. He suddenly felt old. He watched in silence. The kid put down his binoculars and plugged the cord of his laptop into the telescope. He turned his attention from the sky to the computer screen. After the first obligatory moments of necessity, human niceties, him and his buddy got down to business. Well, what have you got for me? 76 degrees, 23 minutes, 10 seconds. He waited anxiously, listening to the sound of computer keys. He remembered news reports when he had listened to the teletype machines in the background. In some way, that sound was comforting. In a different way, the sound of the computer keyboard always disturbed him. Well, it looks like you almost had a hit on this one. It was discovered by an 18-year-old kid last week, right in your hometown. He didn't listen to the rest of the explanation. The dates, details, and names were not important to him, since they were not his. Well, thanks a lot, he said. Hey, no problem. Good job finding that one. You're probably the first one in the general public to see it. It may even be visible in the next couple of months. It should be a pretty sight. He hung up the phone. No obligatory goodbyes this time. So he was a member of the general public, and this kid was an insider. Blah, blah, blah. He flipped on his flashlight, and the light was so dim it was unusable. He held it up against his chart and saw the light fade before his eyes. He watched it until all trace of the red flashlight beam disappeared. Out of habit, he did the useless act of switching it off. He placed it all on a rock by his side. The charts, the flashlight, the glasses, the sharp pencil. He looked up at the sky. Somewhere up there was a point of light that belonged to him. He knew it, but he also knew now that he would never see it. Too many stars, too many tiny specks of life. He went home. He sat on his easy chair. He had slept here many nights, sometimes with the TV running for company. He shut his eyes, not to fall asleep, but to try to keep them from crying. He sat there for at least an hour thinking. He slowly picked up the phone. He looked at it for at least a minute before he died. Hi, he said. No, everything's fine. I hope I'm not calling too late. Hey, about dinner. Yeah, I know I said lunch on Saturday. I think dinner would be a better idea. A bit more romantic. I lost part of the story. But this is a test. This is only a test, and it looks still fuzzy, but better than it did before. If I turn this off, it looks fuzzy white instead of fuzzy black. Bright light, bright light, bright light. Less fuzzy with more light. Okay. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'm going to bed. This is test number 2 of the live video feed. And I don't know when this stops exactly. I guess I need to press that button